Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the smoky glow of a medieval Icelandic feast where you're about to navigate the odd rules of a Viking Age gathering around 1000 CE. Picture yourself ducking through a turf-roofed longhouse, the air thick with the scent of roasted mutton and burning pine. Your boots sink into packed earth, and the flicker of oil lamps dances on wooden beams. Laughter and clinking horns spill from a crowded hall where tables groan under heaps of bread and fish. You're here to unravel the quirky customs that kept these feasts from descending into chaos. Fair warning, you probably won't survive this without spilling ale or breaking some ancient etiquette. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in a Norse settlement, maybe Thingvellir, where feasts were the social glue of medieval Iceland, binding families, settling disputes, and showing off wealth. The longhouse is packed warriors in wool tunics, jostling alongside women in brooch-pinned dresses. You're clutching a horn of ale, trying not to trip over a sleeping dog by the hearth. The rules hit you fast: no weapons inside, no stealing food, and definitely no insulting the host's beard. These feasts, often tied to harvests or sagas, were governed by customs as rigid as a ship's rigging, rooted in honor and survival in a harsh land. You're already sweating, hoping you don't botch the first handshake. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed a poorly run feast could curse the host's luck for a year. You're eyeing the chieftain now, his silver arm ring gleaming, and you're wondering if he's double-checking the ale supply to dodge bad vibes. Historians still argue whether this was a serious superstition or just a way to pressure hosts into generosity. Either way, you're treading carefully, not wanting to jinx anyone's fishing season. The mainstream fact is that feasts were central to Norse society, documented in sagas like the Eagle's Saga, where they sealed alliances and aired grievances, all while following strict social codes. You're weaving through the crowd, the hall's heat making your cloak feel like a sauna. A woman with a braided crown nudges you toward a bench, her smile kind but firm, like she knows you're a rookie. You sit the ale horn heavy in your hand and scan the tables, platters of cod barley bread, and a questionable cheese that smells like regret. The rules are sinking in: respect the host, follow the seating, and don't hog the mutton. You're thinking of that curse, hoping your manners hold up. The chieftain's voice booms, welcoming guests, and you're caught in the feast's rhythm. Its odd customs, a puzzle you're ready to solve. It's chaotic, but soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're deep in the longhouse's smoky haze now, the feast's roar wrapping you like a wool blanket. The air's thick with roasted fish and the sharp tang of spilled ale, your boots sticking slightly to the earth floor. The chieftain's welcome is your focus, his broad frame looming at the hall's head, silver arm ring glinting under lamplight. You're clutching your ale horn, still dodging that sleeping dog by the hearth, and trying to nail the greeting etiquette that keeps this Icelandic feast from turning into a brawl. The rules are strict, and you're nervous, your cloak itching as you step forward to meet the host. In medieval Iceland around 1000 CE, the chieftain's welcome set the tone for feasts, a ritual rooted in Norse honor codes described in sagas like Njál's Saga. You're facing him now, his beard a tangle of pride, and you're supposed to offer a bow deep, but not groveling, and a phrase like, "Hail, generous host." You try it, your voice wobbling, and he nods, though his eyes say you're about as smooth as a storm-tossed longship. The rules are clear: praise his hospitality, don't mention his rival, and never ever touch his arm ring. You're sweating, hoping you didn't just curse his luck like that quirky superstition warned. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some guests believed wearing a specific brooch during the greeting could win the chieftain's favor like a medieval good luck charm. You're fumbling with a plain iron pin on your cloak, wishing you'd snagged a fancier one from the market. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread custom or just a fad among status-obsessed Norsemen. You're joking to yourself that your shaky bow probably tanked any brooch magic, and a nearby warrior, his tunic stained with grease, chuckles, saying, "Stand tall or he'll seat you by the dogs." The mainstream fact is that the chieftain's role at feasts was pivotal, acting as host, judge, and social glue in Iceland's tight-knit communities. His welcome wasn't just polite, it signaled who ranked where, who'd get the best ale, and who'd be stuck near the drafty door. You're following him to a high table, trying not to trip as he gestures to a bench. You sit relieved, though you're wedged between a burly fisherman and a woman with a stare sharper than her dagger brooch. The seating's a map of power, and you're clearly not VIP, but you're safe for now. Your ale horn still unspilled. The chieftain's voice rumbles, praising the harvest, and you're thinking of that feast curse rumor, how his generosity keeps it at bay. He offers you a slice of barley bread, and you take it joking that it's your welcome survival snack. He grins, saying bread binds guests. You're munching the crust, tough but warm, and you're remembering the hall's glow, how it promised rules you're still learning. The fisherman nudges you, muttering to keep your horn raised during toasts, another rule you're scrambling to follow. You're tempted to ask for a rule book, but you're too busy chewing. The hall's alive, lamps flickering, and you're caught in the feast's rhythm. The chieftain's welcome, a thread tying you to this world. You're not a Norse lord, but you're learning each nod a lesson in their odd customs. The grid. Okay, not a grid, but the order of this hall feels soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to tackle the table rules next to see how this feast's etiquette shapes every bite and sip. You're settled at the longhouse's high table now, the feast's clamor swirling around you like a winter storm. The air's heavy with the scent of boiled cod and sour whey, your cloak draped over the bench to avoid a stray splash. Your ale horn still in hand, the chieftain's bread a warm weight in your stomach, and you're navigating the table rules, a maze of medieval Icelandic etiquette designed to keep this meal from turning into a food fight. The fisherman's nudge about toasting lingers, and you're scanning the table, trying not to commit a social blunder that'll land you by the dogs. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, feasts followed strict dining customs as sagas like Grettir's saga show, with rules governing who ate what, when, and how. You're eyeing the spread platters of mutton fish and a dubious cheese that smells like it's plotting revenge. The table's a hierarchy. Chieftains get the best cuts, guests like you share bowls, and nobody grabs food before the host. You're reaching for a cod strip, but the woman with the dagger brooch, let's call her Astrid, stops you with a look pointing to the chieftain. He's carving mutton first, so you wait, your stomach growling loud enough to wake the hearth dog. Here's the quirky tidbit: some Norsemen believed passing food clockwise brought harmony, like aligning with the sun's path. You're watching Astrid pass a bowl of barley porridge right to left, and you're confused, but you follow, hoping it's not a curse trigger. Historians still argue whether this was a universal rule or a regional quirk, maybe tied to local myths. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have spun the bowl backward, and the fisherman laughs, saying pass right, or the gods frown. The mainstream fact is that table etiquette in medieval Iceland reinforced social bonds with shared bowls and toasts, building trust in a land where winters tested loyalty. You're finally grabbing that cod, tearing off a piece, and it's salty, but good like ocean jerky. Astrid's explaining the rules: don't hoard, don't spill, and always toast the host before drinking. You're raising your horn, muttering a shaky scowl and hoping you nailed it. The ale's sharp warming your throat, and you're starting to get the rhythm: eat, pass, toast, repeat. It's like a Viking dinner dance, and you're barely keeping up. Astrid slides you a chunk of cheese, and you nibble it, joking that it's your etiquette endurance test. She smirks, saying only the brave eat it twice. You're thinking of the chieftain's welcome, how his arm ring signaled power, and the feast curse rumor how good manners keep it at bay. The table's a microcosm of the hall, each rule a thread in Iceland's social web. You're tempted to grab more cod, but Astrid's watching, so you pass the bowl clockwise, earning a nod. The fisherman's toasting again, and you're scrambling to raise your horn ale sloshing. The lamps flicker, and you're running your fingers over the bench, its wood worn smooth. You're remembering the hall's glow, how it promised order, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, its rules a strange comfort. You're not a Norse pro, but you're learning each bite a lesson in their odd customs. The grid, well, the table's layout feels soothing like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to tackle the ale-pouring rules next to see how this feast's flow keeps everyone and everything in line. You're still at the Longhouse's high table, the feast's din a warm hum around you. The air's thick with the scent of smoked fish and the yeasty bite of fresh ale. Your cloak now speckled with porridge crumbs from your table. Etiquette crash course. Your ale horn's empty, and you're tasked with pouring more, a job that comes with medieval Icelandic drinking customs stricter than a chieftain's handshake. Astrid's dagger brooch glints as she watches, and the fisherman's toasting grin eggs you on. You're gripping a heavy clay jug, praying you don't spill and break the feast's delicate balance. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, ale was the lifeblood of feasts, with pouring and drinking governed by rules to maintain honor and order, as seen in sagas like Laxdæla Saga. You're standing now jug in hand, facing a row of outstretched horns. The custom's clear pour for the chieftain, first then, high-ranking guests, and never let a horn run dry. It's a hospitality flex. You're tilting the jug, aiming for Astrid's horn, but your pour's wobbly, splashing her sleeve. She raises an eyebrow, muttering, "Steady, or you're mopping." You're blushing, but you keep going the ale's froth, a reminder of the stakes. Here's the quirky tidbit: some Icelanders believed ale poured under a full moon tasted sweeter, blessed by lunar spirits. You're glancing at the Longhouse's smoke hole, the moon a faint glow, and wondering if tonight's batch is extra magical. Historians still argue whether this was a poetic superstition or tied to brewing cycles. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have soured the whole keg, and the fisherman laughs, saying pour straight or the moon's offended. The mainstream fact is that drinking rituals at Norse feasts reinforced social hierarchies, with the host's generosity measured by free-flowing ale. You're moving down the table, filling the chieftain's horn. Next, his nod, a small victory. The ale's brewed from barley strong enough to warm your bones, and you're learning the rhythm. Pour step, don't drip. The rules also demand toasts. Every sip needs a skål to honor someone, usually the host or a god like Thor. You're muttering skål, with each pour feeling like a medieval bartender, though your aim's still shaky, and Astrid's sleeve is proof. A young server hands you a piece of dried cod to chew, and you munch it, joking that it's your pouring power snack. She giggles, saying ale's tougher than fish. You're thinking of the table's clockwise passing, how it kept the meal smooth, and the feast curse rumor, how good pours dodge bad luck. The jug's getting lighter, but your arms are aching, and you're tempted to sneak a sip, but the fisherman's watching, so you stick to serving. The hall's alive, horns clinking, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, the ale's flow a thread tying you to these odd rules. You're remembering the chieftain's arm ring, how it signaled his duty to provide, and you're pouring faster, trying to match his generosity. A lamp sputters, and you're running your fingers over the jug's clay, its weight grounding you. You're not a Norse host, but you're learning each pour a lesson in their customs. The grid, okay. The table's order feels soothing like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to listen to the skald next, to see how his songs weave into this feast's strange etiquette, keeping the night's harmony intact. You're easing back onto the longhouse bench, the feast's warmth wrapping you like a heavy cloak. The air's rich with the scent of smoldering logs and warm bread, your ale horn refilled thanks to your shaky pouring stint. Your cloak's still crumb-dusted, and Astrid's damp sleeve shoots you a playful glare across the table. You're turning your attention to the skald, now a poet whose songs are the heart of this Icelandic feast, bound by rules as strict as the ale-pouring customs. His voice rises a low hum, cutting through the hall's chatter, and you're learning to respect the protocol that keeps his performance sacred. In medieval Iceland, around 1000 CE skalds were revered storytellers, their poetry at feasts preserving history and honor, as seen in sagas like Heimskringla. You're watching the skald, a wiry man with a silver-trimmed cloak, strumming a small harp as he chants a saga about a hero's sea voyage. The rules are clear: no interrupting, no mocking and applause, only when he pauses. You're leaning forward, trying not to slosh your ale, captivated by his words. Storm's God's betrayal. The hall's quiet, even the fisherman's toasting paused, and you're feeling the weight of the moment like you're part of a living myth. Here's the quirky tidbit: some Icelanders believed a skald's best verses were whispered by Odin slipping through dreams. You're watching his fingers on the harp, half expecting a divine glow. But it's just lamplight. It's a wild idea, like he's channeling a godly podcast. Historians still argue whether this was a poetic metaphor or a genuine belief tied to Norse spirituality. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have gotten Odin's voicemail, and Astrid whispers, "Hush, or the gods skip us." The mainstream fact is that skaldic poetry was a cornerstone of Norse culture, with feasts serving as stages for tales that reinforced community ties. The skald's chanting about a chieftain's lineage now, and you're catching familiar names, maybe even your hosts. His verses are rhythmic, almost hypnotic, and you're thinking of the ale-pouring rules, how they kept the feast flowing. This is similar. His words hold the hall together, each line a thread in Iceland's social tapestry. You're tempted to clap mid-verse, but Astrid's glare stops you and you settle for a quiet sip of ale, its bite grounding you. A server slides you a piece of barley bread, and you nibble it, joking that it's your skald listening fuel. She smirks, saying stories feed the soul. You're thinking of the chieftain's arm ring, how it signaled his role, and the feast curse rumor, how good poetry might dodge bad luck. The skald's harp hums, and you're remembering your pouring fumble, how it felt like a small victory. The hall's a cocoon lamps flickering, and you're caught in the rhythm. His voice a pulse tying you to these odd customs. You're tempted to hum along, but the fisherman's raised eyebrow keeps you silent. You're running your fingers over the bench, its wood warm, and you're in awe of the skald's skill, each verse a lesson in Norse pride. You're not a poet, but you're learning his words, weaving you into the feast's heart. The grid. Well, the hall's order feels soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to dive into the food-sharing rules next to see how this feast's etiquette shapes every bite, keeping the night's harmony as steady as the skald's song. You're still nestled in the longhouse's smoky embrace, the skald's saga fading into a soft hum as the feast's rhythm shifts. The air's thick with the scent of stewed mutton and the earthy tang of damp wool. Your ale horn warm in your hand from clutching it through the poet's performance. Your cloak's a crumby mess, and Astrid's across the table, her dagger brooch catching the lamplight as she nods approval at your silence. You're serving food now, navigating the medieval Icelandic rules for portioning out the feast's bounty, a task as delicate as pouring ale and just as likely to trip you up. In Iceland, around 1000 CE food sharing at feasts followed strict customs as sagas, like Eyrbyggja saga, describe ensuring fairness and honor in every bite. You're standing by a steaming cauldron of mutton stew, ladle in hand, facing a line of hungry guests, The rules are ironclad. Serve the chieftain first portion evenly, and don't favor friends or enemies. You're scooping stew into wooden bowls, aiming for Astrid's first, but your ladle's shaky, and a chunk of turnip plops onto the table. She laughs, saying, "Aim better, or you're eating the floor scraps." You're grinning, but you're focused, trying not to mess up the pecking order. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Norsemen believed serving food with a smile blessed the meal, warding off bad spirits. You're forcing a grin now, though it's more nervous intern than jolly host, hoping it's enough to keep the stew curse-free. Historians still argue whether this was a heartfelt belief or a way to keep servers polite under pressure. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have cursed the whole pot, and the fisherman waiting for his bowl chuckles saying, "Smile wider," or the mutton sours. The mainstream fact is that food distribution at Norse feasts reinforced social ties with equitable portions, signaling a host's generosity and preventing grudges. The stew's rich, flecked with herbs, and you're serving the chieftain next, his nod a small win. You're learning the rhythm scoop pour pass while keeping an eye on the table's hierarchy, just like the seating rules you fumbled through. The bowls are shared 2 or 3 guests per, and you're making sure nobody's shorted, though the fisherman's eyeing your pour like he's measuring it with a ruler. You're tempted to give him extra, but the rules say fair's fair. A young server hands you a piece of cod jerky, and you chew it, joking that it's your stew serving stamina boost. She giggles, saying mutton's tougher than cod. You're thinking of the Skald's saga, how it wove the hall together, and the feast curse rumor, how good portions dodge bad luck. The cauldron's steam curls, and you're remembering your ale-pouring splash, how Astrid's sleeve forgave you. You're serving her again, this time nailing the pour, and she winks, a rare thaw. The hall's buzzing, bowls clinking, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, the food's flow a thread in its odd customs. You're running your fingers over the ladle. It's wood-worn smooth, and you're in awe of the rules. Each portion, a lesson in Norse balance. You're not a host, but you're learning, every scoop tying you to the chieftains. Welcome the table's order. The grid. Okay. The feast's structure feels soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to tackle the gift exchange next, to see how this feast's etiquette weaves honor into every trade, keeping the night's harmony as steady as the stew's warmth. You're easing away from the steaming cauldron, the longhouse's heat pressing against you as the feast's clamor swirls. The air's rich with the scent of mutton stew and the faint sweetness of honeyed bread, your cloak now dusted with barley flecks from your serving stint. Your ale horns tucked under your arm, and Astrid's wink lingers, a small victory after your ladle triumph. You're diving into the gift exchange now, a medieval Icelandic ritual, where trading tokens at the feast binds honor and alliances with rules as tight as the table's etiquette. The hall's buzzing, and you're clutching a small bone comb, ready to navigate this delicate dance. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, gift-giving at feasts was a serious affair, as sagas like Njal's saga show cementing loyalty and status through carefully chosen exchanges. You're standing near the chieftain's table, where guests are swapping goods, brooches, knives, wool cloaks. The rules are strict. Offer a gift equal to your rank, accept graciously, and never outshine the host. You're offering your comb to the fisherman, hoping it's not too shabby, but his raised eyebrow says you're cutting it close. You're smiling, muttering something about fine craftsmanship, and he takes it, handing you a carved wooden spoon in return. It's a fair trade, but you're sweating, praying you didn't insult his fishing prowess. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed gifts wrapped in specific cloths carried extra luck, like a Norse gift bag charm. Your comb's just bare bone, and you're wishing you'd snagged some fancy wool to wrap it in. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread custom or a quirk of superstitious traders. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have unraveled any lucky cloth, and Astrid overhearing chuckles saying wrap tighter or the luck spills. The mainstream fact is that gift exchanges at Norse feasts were a social contract strengthening bonds in a society where trust was survival. The chieftain's trading a silver ring for a guest's iron dagger, his arm ring glinting as he seals the deal with a nod. You're watching Learning the Rhythm offer praise trade while keeping your spoon close its carving smooth under your fingers. The rules mirror the food sharing you tackled each gift, a gesture of balance like the clockwise bowl passing that kept the meal smooth. You're tempted to trade again, maybe with Astrid, but her dagger brooch screams don't lowball me, so you stick to observing. A server slips you a piece of honeyed bread, and you munch it, joking that it's your gift-trading energy bite. She smirks, saying, honey sweetens deals. You're thinking of the Skald's saga, how it wove the hall's honor and the feast curse rumor, how good gifts dodge bad vibes. The hall's alive lamps casting shadows, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, the exchange a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering your ale-pouring fumble, how Astrid forgave you, and you're tempted to gift her the spoon, but you're not brave enough yet. You're running your fingers over the spoon's carvings, their grooves grounding you, and you're in awe of the rules. Each trade a lesson in Norse loyalty. You're not a chieftain, but you're learning every gift tying you to the table's order, the host's welcome. The grid, well, the feast's flow, feels soothing like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to tend the fire next, to see how this feast's etiquette warms the hall, keeping the night's harmony as steady as the gifts you've swapped. You're slipping away from the gift exchange's tense barter, the longhouse's smoky air wrapping you as you move toward the central hearth. The scent of burning pine and melted tallow fills your nose, your cloak now trailing a faint honey bread crumb from your trading snack. Your wooden spoon, freshly swapped for that bone comb, is tucked in your pouch, clinking softly against the carnelian beads from another life, okay, just Mohenjo-Daro. You're stoking the fire now, a humble but crucial task at this medieval Icelandic feast, governed by hearthside manners that keep the hall warm and the mood steady. The fisherman's watching his grin, suggesting you're about to fumble another rule. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, the hearth was the feast's heart, its fire a symbol of hospitality, as sagas like Gisli's saga imply, with rules ensuring it never died. You're kneeling by the fire pit, a pile of logs at your side, trying to place one without sending sparks flying. The chieftain's nearby, his arm ring glinting, and a stern woman, let's call her Frida with a wool shawl, shows you how stack gently, keep the flame low, and never block the heat. Your first log topples, nearly singeing your cloak, and Frida sighs, muttering, city hands, huh? You're laughing, but you're focused, determined to keep the hall cozy. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed a steady fire blessed the feast, with Thor's favor warding off storms. You're poking the logs now, half expecting a thunder god high five, but it's just embers. Historians still argue whether this was a religious ritual or a practical way to hype fire-tending diligence. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have doused the whole hearth, and the fisherman chuckles, saying stack don't sing or Thor's grumpy. The mainstream fact is that hearth management at Norse feasts was a shared duty, reflecting the community's reliance on warmth in Iceland's brutal winters. The fire's glow lights the hall, casting shadows on the mutton-strewn tables you served, and you're learning the rhythm at a log shift. The embers don't smother it. Frida's explaining how the hearth's heat reaches every bench, a nod to the chieftain's generosity, like the ale you poured. You're thinking of the gift exchange, how it bound honor, and the feast curse rumor, how a good fire keeps bad luck at bay. You're tempted to toss in extra logs for flair, but Frida's glare stops you. She hands you a clay cup of warm whey, and you sip it, joking that it's your fire-tending tonic. She smirks, saying, "Whey's sharper than flames." You're running your fingers over the spoon in your pouch, its carvings a reminder of the trade's rules, and you're picturing Astrid's dagger brooch, how she'd probably stoke better. The hall's alive laughter rising with the smoke, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, the fire's crackle, a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering the Skald's saga, how it warmed the heart, and you're stoking carefully the logs, settling with a soft thud. The lamps flicker, and you're in awe of the rules, each ember a lesson in Norse survival. You're not a hearth keeper, but you're learning every log tying you to the chieftain's welcome the table's order. The grid, while the hall's warmth feels soothing like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to mingle as a guest, next to master the conversation codes that keep this feast's harmony as steady as the fire you're barely keeping alive. You're easing away from the hearth's crackling glow, the longhouse's smoky air swirling as you weave through the feast's bustling crowd. The scent of roasted cod and spilled ale clings to your cloak, now dusted with ash from your fire-tending fumble. Your wooden spoon clinks in your pouch, a gift exchange trophy, and your ale horns back in hand warmed by the hall's heat. You're mingling as a guest, now navigating medieval Icelandic conversation codes that keep this feast's chatter from sparking feuds. Frida's stern hearthside nod lingers, and you're dodging the fisherman's grin, hoping to ace these social rules without stepping on any Norse toes. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, feast conversations were governed by strict etiquette, as sagas, like Eagle's Saga, suggest balancing boasts, compliments, and silences to maintain honor. You're squeezing onto a bench between Astrid and a burly warrior with a braided beard trying to join the talk without breaking the rules. Praise the host, avoid feuds, and never outbrag a chieftain. Astrid's dagger brooch glints as she recounts a fishing tale, and you're nodding, tossing in a cautious, "Fine catch." You're sweating, hoping you didn't sound too eager like a medieval fanboy at a saga convention. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed speaking softly at feasts pleased the elves, mythical beings thought to eavesdrop. You're keeping your voice low now, half expecting a pointy-eared critic in the shadows, but it's just the hearth dog snoring. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine superstition or a polite way to curb loudmouths. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have sent the elves packing, and the warrior chuckles saying whisper, or the spirits gossip. The mainstream fact is that conversation at Norse feasts was a social tightrope strengthening alliances while avoiding the grudges that fueled Iceland's blood feuds. You're listening as Astrid shifts to praising the chieftain's ale, a safe topic, and you chime in saying it's smoother than a fjord's breeze. It's a weak line, but she nods, and you're relieved, sipping your ale to cover your nerves. The rules mirror the food sharing you tackled. Fairness, respect, no hogging the spotlight. You're thinking of the hearth's steady fire, how it warmed the hall, and the feast curse rumor, how good chatter keeps bad luck at bay. You're tempted to boast about your fire stoking, but the warrior's beard screams, "Don't try it." A server slides you a piece of dried apple, and you chew it, joking that it's your conversation courage bite. She smirks, saying apples sharpen wit. You're running your fingers over the spoon in your pouch, its carvings grounding you, and you're picturing the Skald's saga, how it wove the hall's honor. The hall's alive lamps flickering, and you're caught in the feast's pulse. The chatter a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering your ale-pouring splash, how Astrid forgave you, and you're braving a question about her fishing nets earning a half-smile. Progress. You're in awe of the rules, each word a lesson in Norse diplomacy. You're not a saga hero, but you're learning every nod, tying you to the chieftain's welcome the table's order. The grid, while the feast's flow feels soothing like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to join the women's space next to navigate their roles in this feast, keeping the night's harmony as steady as Astrid's sharp gaze. You're slipping away from the high table's chatter, the longhouse's smoky warmth trailing you as you move toward a quieter corner where the women gather. The air's laced with the scent of baked bread and lavender from woven wreaths, your cloak still flecked with ash and apple crumbs from your mingling stint. Your wooden spoon clinks in your pouch, a gift exchange relic, and your ale horns tucked under your arm, half empty from nervous sips. You're joining the women's space now, navigating their distinct roles and rules in this medieval Icelandic feast, a world of subtle power within the hall's chaos. Astrid's half-smile lingers, but you're stepping into Frida's domain, her wool shawl a beacon in the lamplight. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, women at feasts held specific roles, often managing food, drink, and social harmony, as hinted in sagas like Laxdæla Saga. You're sitting on a low bench among a group of women, their brooch-pinned dresses glinting as they pass bowls of whey and braided bread. Frida's leading, her voice calm but firm, directing a younger woman to refill a jug. The rules here are clear. Serve with grace, mediate disputes quietly, and never overshadow the men's boasts. You're offering to help, holding a bread basket, but your grip's shaky, and Frida's raised eyebrow says, "You're more guest than assistant." Here's the quirky tidbit: some women believed wearing amber beads at feasts strengthened their influence like a Norse charm for social sway. You're noticing Frida's necklace now? It's amber, glowing softly, and you're wondering if it's her secret weapon. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread custom or a poetic flourish in sagas. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have dulled the bead's shine, and a young server, her braids swinging, giggles saying, "Keep quiet," or "The amber sleeps." The mainstream fact is that women in Norse society wielded significant influence at feasts, often shaping alliances through subtle gestures despite male-dominated narratives. Frida's handing you a loaf to pass, and you're trying to mimic her poise, though you nearly drop it. She's explaining how women ensure the hall's flow, refilling horns, soothing tempers like the ale pouring you fumbled. You're thinking of the conversation codes, how they kept the chatter civil, and the feast curse rumor, how women's grace might dodge bad luck. The bread's warm, and you're passing it carefully, earning a nod from Frida, a small win in this women's world. The server offers you a sip of whey, and you drink, joking that it's your women's space survival juice. She laughs, saying whey's sharper than ale. You're running your fingers over the spoon in your pouch, its carvings a reminder of the gift exchange, and you're picturing Astrid's dagger brooch, how she ruled the table. The women's corner is alive, their voices a soft hum, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, their roles a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering the hearth's fire, how you stoked it clumsily, and you're tempted to help with the jugs. But Frida's glare keeps you on bread duty. You're in awe of the rules, each pass a lesson in Norse balance. You're not a matriarch, but you're learning every loaf, tying you to the chieftain's welcome, the skald's saga. The grid, well, the feast's order feels soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to watch the children next to navigate their quirky customs in this feast, keeping the night's harmony as steady as Frida's amber-lit calm. You're easing away from the women's corner, the longhouse's smoky hum fading as you slip toward a lively nook where children scamper under flickering lamps. The air's sharp with the scent of spilled whey and sticky honey, your cloak now trailing a faint lavender whiff from Frida's wreath. Your wooden spoon clinks in your pouch, a gift exchange keepsake, and your ale horn stashed, safely spared from the kids' chaos. You're watching the children now navigating their quirky customs at this medieval Icelandic feast, a whirlwind of games and rules that mirror the hall's order in pint-sized form. Frida's amber glow lingers, but you're diving into a new world, dodging a kid with a wooden sword. In Iceland, Around 1000 CE, children at feasts had their own roles and customs, often playing games that taught social norms, as hinted in sagas like Grettir's Saga. You're crouching near a group of kids, their wool tunics smudged with dirt, tossing bone dice in a game called Knucklebones. The rules are strict. No cheating, share the dice, and don't cry if you lose. A girl with tangled braids, let's call her Sigrid, is bossing the game, her glare fiercer than Astrid's dagger brooch. You're trying to join rolling a die, but it skitters into a bowl of porridge, and Sigrid sighs, saying, "You're worse than the goats." Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed children's laughter at feasts pleased the land spirits, ensuring good harvests. You're watching Sigrid's grin now, half expecting a field to sprout nearby, but it's just lamplight. Historians still argue whether this was a heartfelt belief or a way to let kids be loud without scolding. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have sent the spirits running, and a boy nearby clutching a toy ship laughs, saying, "Sing quiet, or the crops fail." The mainstream fact is that children's activities at Norse feasts were a training ground for adult roles, teaching cooperation and hierarchy through play. Sigrid's explaining Knucklebones. Now each role a point system you're pretending to understand. The game's a mini feast, with rules echoing the food sharing you tackled. Fairness, order, no hogging. You're thinking of the women's space, how Frida's calm shaped the hall, and the feast curse rumor, how kids' joy might dodge bad luck. You're rolling again, this time landing a point, and Sigrid nods a grudging approval. You're not a kid, but you're hooked, the dice's clatter pulling you in. A server hands you a sticky honey cake and you munch it, joking that it's your Knucklebones champion treat. She smirks, saying honey's for winners. You're running your fingers over the spoon in your pouch, its carvings grounding you, and you're picturing the hearth's fire, how you stoked it clumsily. The kids' corner is alive, their shouts a high-pitched hum, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, their games a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering the Skald's saga, how it wove honor, and you're tempted to join a sword game, but your ale-pouring fumble keeps you humble. You're in awe of the rules, each toss a lesson in Norse community. You're not a child, but you're learning every die, tying you to the chieftain's welcome, the table's order. The grid well, the feast's flow feels soothing like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to mediate a dispute next, to navigate the feast's truce and keep its harmony as steady as Sigrid's fierce little glare. You're pulling away from the children's chaotic nook, the longhouse's smoky din swelling as you weave back toward the feast's heart. The air's thick with the scent of roasted mutton and the faint sweetness of honey cake, your cloak now sticky from Sigrid's game-time crumbs. Your wooden spoon clinks in your pouch, a quiet reminder of the gift exchange, and your ale horns back in hand, miraculously unspilled. You're stepping into a tense moment now, mediating a dispute between two guests, a delicate task under medieval Icelandic feast rules that demand a truce to keep the hall's peace. The kids' laughter fades, but Sigrid's fierce glare inspires you to handle this with care. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, feasts were sacred pauses for settling disputes, as sagas like Njal's saga describe with strict customs, ensuring no blood was spilled indoors. You're standing between two warriors, their beards bristling, one's accusing the other of shorting a trade deal. The rules are clear: no weapons, no insults, and resolve it before the chieftain steps in. You're holding up your hands, channeling Frida's calm and suggesting they share ale to cool tempers. The taller warrior, let's call him Bjorn, scoffs, but Astrid nearby nods approval, her dagger brooch glinting. You're sweating, hoping you don't spark a saga-worthy feud. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believe disputes settled by firelight carried Thor's blessing, sealing agreements with divine strength. You're glancing at the hearth now, its flames steady from your stoking, and half expecting a godly thumbs up. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual belief or a way to rush resolutions before the fire died. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have blown out Thor's spark, and the fisherman eavesdropping chuckles saying, "Talk soft, or the flames judge you." The mainstream fact is that feasts in Norse society served as neutral grounds for mediation with truce rules, preventing Iceland's frequent blood feuds from erupting. You're urging Bjorn to offer a toast, a custom you learned from pouring ale, and he grumbles but raises his horn. The other warrior Sven follows, muttering "Skál," and you're exhaling, the tension easing like a loosened knot. The chieftain's watching from his table, his arm ring a reminder of his authority, and you're thinking of the feast curse rumor, how peace keeps bad luck at bay. You're not a law speaker, but you're channeling the skald's rhythm, weaving calm with words like "his saga wove honor." A server slips you a piece of dried fish, and you chew it, joking that it's your dispute-diffusing snack. She smirks, saying fish sharpens wits. You're running your fingers over the spoon in your pouch, its carvings grounding you, and you're picturing the children's knuckle bones, how their rules taught fairness. The hall's alive lamps casting shadows, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, the truce a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering the women's space, how Frida's amber steadied the flow, and you're tempted to call her over, but Bjorn's offering Sven a wool cap, a peace token, and you're staying put. You're in awe of the rules, each word a lesson in Norse harmony. You're not a chieftain, but you're learning every toast tying you to the table's order, the hearth's warmth. The grid, well, the feast's balance feels soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to share stories next, to navigate the oral traditions that keep this feast's spirit as steady as the firelight sealing Bjorn and Sven's truce. You're settling back into the longhouse's smoky embrace, the feast's hum softening as the night deepens. The air's warm with the scent of smoldering logs and leftover cod. Your cloak now a canvas of ash. Honey and fish flecks from your dispute-mediating stint. Your wooden spoon clinks in your pouch, a gift exchange relic, and your ale horns cradled in your lap, its contents low from toasting Bjorn and Sven's truce. You're sharing stories now, diving into medieval Icelandic oral traditions that keep this feast spirit alive, bound by rules as sacred as the fire you stoked. The hearth's glow flickers, and Astrid's nearby, her dagger brooch, a quiet anchor as you prepare to speak. In Iceland, around 1000 CE, storytelling at feasts was a revered custom, as sagas like Heimskringla show passing down history and honor through spoken tales. You're on a bench, the hall quieter now, guests leaning in as the skald pauses to sip ale. The rules are strict. Tell a true tale, honor the host, and don't ramble. Brevity's a Norse virtue. You're up next, your throat dry as you muster a story about a fictional fishing trip, hoping it fits the vibe. The fisherman's grinning, ready to judge, and you're praying you don't botch this like your ale-pouring splash on Astrid's sleeve. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed stories told after midnight carried the weight of ancestral spirits, making them truer. You're glancing at the smoke hole, the stars faint, and wondering if it's late enough for ghostly backup. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual belief or a way to hype late-night tales. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have scared the ancestors off, and Frida sitting nearby chuckles, saying, "Speak clear, or the spirits yawn." The mainstream fact is that oral traditions were the backbone of Norse culture, with feasts serving as stages for sagas that preserved Iceland's identity in a land without written records. You're starting your tale voice, shaky, describing a stormy sea and a net full of cod. It's no skaldic masterpiece, but the fisherman nods, and Astrid's not glaring, so you're rolling with it. The rules echo the dispute mediation you navigated, calm, respect, no ego, like the clockwise food passing that kept the table fair. You're thinking of the feast curse rumor, how good stories dodge bad luck, and you're weaving in praise for the chieftain's ale, a safe bet. A server hands you a piece of barley bread, and you nibble it, joking that it's your storytelling stamina bite. She smirks, saying bread fuels words. You're running your fingers over the spoon in your pouch, its carvings grounding you. And you're picturing the children's knuckle bones, how their games taught order. The hall's alive lamps dimming, and you're caught in the feast's pulse, your story a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering the women's space, how Frida's amber steadied the night, and you're wrapping up the fishing tale ending with a modest catch earning a few claps. You're in awe of the rules, each word a lesson in Norse legacy. You're not a skald, but you're learning every tale tying you to the hearth's warmth, the chieftain's welcome. The grid well, the feast's rhythm feels soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to bid farewell, next to navigate the parting rituals that close this feast, keeping its harmony as steady as the stories lingering in the smoky air. You're easing away from the storytelling circle, the longhouse's smoky haze thinning as the feast winds down. The air's heavy with the scent of cooling embers and lingering ale. Your cloak a patchwork of crumbs, ash, and storytelling nerves. Your wooden spoon clinks in your pouch, a gift exchange anchor, and your ale horns nearly empty, a casualty of your fishing tale's toasts. You're preparing to bid farewell, now navigating the medieval Icelandic parting rituals that close this feast with grace, sealing its harmony under strict rules. The skald's voice echoes faintly, but the hall's quieter, Astrid's dagger brooch glinting as she watches you brace for the final customs. In Iceland, around 1000 CE farewells at feasts were formal affairs, as sagas like Eyrbyggja saga suggest, with gestures and words reinforcing bonds before guests brave the cold. You're standing near the longhouse door, the chieftain at the center, his arm ring shining as he offers parting words. The rules are clear. Thank the host, offer a small blessing, and don't linger. Norse hospitality loves a clean exit. You're stepping forward, your voice shaky as you thank him for the ale and mutton, adding a clumsy, "May your hearth stay warm." He nods, but Frida's nearby smirk says your delivery's more novice than noble. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed stepping over the threshold backward ensured safe travels, warding off mischievous spirits. You're eyeing the door, now tempted to try it, but you're worried you'll trip and faceplant. Historians still argue whether this was a common ritual or a quirky habit of superstitious guests. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have summoned a troll to block the exit, and the fisherman, adjusting his cloak, chuckles, saying, "Step straight, or the night grabs you." The mainstream fact is that parting rituals at Norse feasts were crucial for maintaining alliances with guests and hosts, exchanging promises of future visits to solidify trust. You're following Astrid's lead, who's offering the chieftain a quick bow, her words crisp and perfect. You're trying to mimic her, but your bow's more awkward stumble, and you're grateful the lamps are dim. The chieftain hands you a small wool token, a braided cord, as a parting gift, and you're clutching it, feeling its weight, like the spoon in your pouch. You're thinking of the dispute you mediated, how it kept the peace, and the feast curse rumor, how a good farewell dodges bad luck. A server slips you a piece of dried apple and you chew it, joking that it's your farewell fortitude snack. She grins, saying apples speed the road. You're running your fingers over the cord, its braids grounding you, and you're picturing the children's knuckle bones, how their games taught order. The hall's subdued guests donning cloaks, and you're caught in the feast's fading pulse, the farewell a thread in its odd customs. You're remembering the hearth's fire, how you stoked it clumsily, and you're tempted to thank Frida, but she's busy guiding a guest, her amber beads glowing. You're in awe of the rules, each word a lesson in Norse connection. You're not a chieftain, but you're learning every gesture tying you to the skald's saga, the table's harmony. The grid well, The feast's flow feels soothing like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to reflect on the feast's legacy, next to see how its rules echo beyond this hall, keeping its spirit as steady as the cord in your hand. You're stepping out of the longhouse, the feast's smoky warmth fading as you stand under Iceland's starry sky, the chill biting through your crumb-dusted cloak. The air's crisp, scented with frost and distant sea salt, your wooden spoon and braided cord clinking in your pouch tokens of a night well spent. Your ale horns long gone left behind, with the parting rituals, and Astrid's final nod lingers a quiet seal on your farewell. You're reflecting now, tracing the legacy of this medieval Icelandic feast's odd rules, how they wove a community's heart around 1000 CE. The hall's hum is a distant echo, and you're sinking into the calm, ready to let this journey rest. The Norse feasts of Iceland, as chronicled in sagas like Njal's saga, were more than meals. They were cultural anchors, their rules shaping social bonds that endured harsh winters and feuds. You're leaning against a turf wall, the stars bright above, and you're picturing every moment the chieftain's arm ring, the skald's saga, Frida's amber beads. Each rule, seeding pouring storytelling, built a web of trust from the hearth you stoked to the dispute you mediated. These customs weren't just quirks. They were Iceland's glue, a legacy of order that echoes in modern gatherings, minus the questionable cheese. You're clutching the cord, its braids a final tie to the hall's harmony. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Icelanders believed a feast's rules pleased the hidden folk, mythical beings ensuring prosperity. You're scanning the shadows, now half expecting a tiny elf to applaud your manners, but it's just a rustling wind. Historians still argue whether this was a serious belief or a poetic nudge for good behavior. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have sent the folk fleeing, and a passing shepherd his staff tapping chuckles saying, "Rest easy," or the spirits gossip. The mainstream fact is that Icelandic feasts were social contracts, their etiquette preserving a fragile society where honor was currency. You're thinking of Sigrid's knucklebones, how they taught fairness, and the clockwise food passing keeping the table just. The rules you fumbled ale pours gift trades fire tending wove a night of connection, a legacy that outlasted the longhouse. You're not a Viking, but you've walked their world, felt its pulse. The shepherd offers you a strip of dried cod, and you chew it joking that it's your legacy musing snack. He grins, saying cod's tougher than tails. You're running your fingers over the cord, its weight grounding you, and you're picturing the hearth's fire, how it warmed the hall's heart. The feast's rules tied you to every moment, Bjorn's truce, Frida's calm, the skald's song. You're grateful for its order, a Norse gift that soothed you like a fan's hum back home. The stars burn the night's quiet, and you're ready to let this legacy carry you its harmony, a final thread in Iceland's timeless weave. The night folds around you, the stars softening as the longhouse's glow fades into memory. Iceland's chill eases the sea's distant whisper blending with the wind, each sound a trace of the feast, laughter toasts, skaldic hums. The turf walls cool, the cord's braids warm in your hand, and your breath slows, sinking into the land's calm. The hall's rules blur its firelight, a gentle pulse, and you're drifting carried by stories and stars. Sleep's here deep and soft, its tide pulling you under a whisper of Norse harmony, guiding you home. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the sun-baked streets of Mohenjo-Daro, an ancient Harappan city where you're about to wander a perfectly planned grid from 2500 BCE. Picture yourself at the city's mud brick gates, the air thick with the scent of baked earth and sesame oil. Your sandals scuff on smooth stone, and the hum of a distant market pulls you forward. towering walls loom, their bricks laid with eerie precision like a giant's graph paper. You're here to unravel how the Harappans designed cities so orderly they'd make a modern urban planner jealous. Fair warning, you probably won't survive this without craving a ruler and a protractor to organize your life. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in Mohenjo-Daro, one of the Indus Valley civilization's crown jewels, where the streets run straight as arrows intersecting at neat right angles. This isn't Rome or Athens. It's older, a Bronze Age marvel that housed 40,000 people at its peak. You're passing ox carts creaking with grain, their drivers nodding as you gape at the grid. Houses line up like soldiers, their flat roofs casting sharp shadows. The Harappans, a mysterious people who left no written records we can fully decode, mastered urban planning when most societies were still figuring out mud huts. Their cities, Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira, were built with a precision that screams obsession, or at least a really good measuring stick. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some archaeologists swear the Harappans used a standardized brick size like ancient Lego to keep their grids flawless. You're holding one now, a sun-baked rectangle that fits your palm perfectly, and it's weirdly satisfying, like stacking books just right. Historians still argue whether this was a citywide rule or just a happy coincidence of local kilns. Either way, you're tempted to pocket it, but the gate guard's watching, his bronze dagger glinting. You smile awkwardly and move on, the brick's weight lingering in your hand. The mainstream fact is that the Harappan civilization, flourishing from 2600 to 1900 BCE, built some of the world's first planned cities. Mohenjo-Daro's grid wasn't random. It was engineered with streets up to 30 feet wide and drains that put medieval Europe to shame. You're walking a main avenue now, dodging a kid chasing a clay ball, his laughter bouncing off the walls. The grid's not just pretty, it's practical, guiding traffic, water, and trade like a well-oiled machine. You're starting to see why archaeologists call this a model city, though you're wondering how they kept everything so tidy without yelling at neighbors to sweep their stoops. A woman in a cotton shawl offers you a clay cup of barley water, and you sip it, the grainy tang grounding you. She jokes that you look lost, like a trader who missed the market. You laugh, but she's not wrong. The grid's dizzying, every street a mirror of the last. You're thinking of that brick, how it's a tiny piece of Harappan genius. The guard's still eyeing you, so you hand back the cup and keep moving, the market's hum growing louder. The city's alive, its grid a pulse you're learning to follow, and it's oddly soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to dig deeper to meet the minds behind this order. You're weaving through Mohenjo-Daro's streets. Now the grid's neat lines, stretching like a chessboard under the midday sun. The air's heavy with dust and the faint sweetness of tamarind from a nearby cart. Your sandals slap against stone, and that clay cup of barley water's still settling in your stomach, a reminder of the city's hospitality. You're meeting a Harappan planner today, a mastermind behind this perfect urban layout, and you're itching to see how they sketched a city this precise without GPS or even a decent compass. A low hum of voices guides you to a mud brick courtyard where the planner's waiting stylus in hand. The Harappan civilization around 2500 BCE was renowned for its urban sophistication, with cities like Mohenjo-Daro planned down to the last brick. You're in the courtyard now, squinting at a planner, a wiry man with a linen kilt hunched over a clay tablet. He's scratching lines with a reed stylus, his strokes as steady as the grid itself. You're trying to peek without looking nosy, but he notices and beckons you over his eyes, sharp but kind. "Watch," he says, pointing to a sketch of streets and drains, every angle flawless. You're impressed, though you're wondering how he doesn't get bored drawing the same squares all day. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some archaeologists think Harappan planners used knotted ropes as measuring tools like ancient tape measures to keep their grids exact. You're watching the planner now, a rope dangling from his belt, its knots worn smooth. You're tempted to ask if it's his secret weapon, but you're not sure he'd get the joke. Historians still argue whether ropes were standard or just a backup for fancier tools we haven't found. Either way, you're imagining him pacing streets counting knots like a kid with a jump rope, and it's oddly charming. The mainstream fact is that Harappan city planning was a feat of engineering, with standardized measurements ensuring uniformity across cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. The planner's tablet shows a mini-grid complete with houses, wells, and a central bath you're dying to check out later. He's explaining ratios, streets twice as wide as alleys, houses aligned to catch breezes, and you're nodding, pretending you follow the math. It's not just lines. It's a vision, a way to make 40,000 people coexist without tripping over each other. You're starting to respect this guy, who's basically the Bronze Age equivalent of a city mayor and architect rolled into one. He hands you a stylus and a scrap of clay, suggesting you try sketching a street. You fumble your lines wobblier than a toddler's drawing, and he laughs, saying you're better suited to trading. You grin, joking that your grid would look like a maze for confused oxen. He likes that, offering you a tamarind pod from a basket. You chew at the tartness, waking you up, and you're thinking of that standardized brick from the gates, how it fits this planner's vision. Everything's connected. Bricks, ropes, tablets, like a puzzle you're only starting to see. The courtyard's busy apprentices, hauling clay and ropes, their chatter blending with the market's hum. You're remembering the gate guard's dagger, how even he seemed to respect the grid's order. The planner's back to his tablet sketching a new block, and you're in awe of his focus. This isn't just a job, it's a legacy etched in clay and stone. You're tempted to sketch again, but your hands are still shaky, so you pocket the stylus as a souvenir. Don't tell the guard. The grid's pulse is stronger now, and you're ready to walk its lines to see how this planner's dream holds up in the city's heart. You're trudging along one of Mohenjo-Daro's wide streets, now the sun scorching your shoulders as you lug a baked brick in your arms. The air smells of clay and sweat, and your sandals are gritty from the dust kicked up by passing ox carts. You're helping build the city's walls today, laying bricks in the Harappan grid's precise pattern, each one a piece of their obsessive urban puzzle. The planner's courtyard sketch is fresh in your mind, and you're trying to match his vision, though your arms are screaming for a break. The grid's not just lines on clay, it's rising around you, solid and unyielding. The Harappans, thriving around 2500 BCE, used millions of baked bricks to construct Mohenjo-Daro, their uniformity, a hallmark of the Indus Valley's engineering prowess. You're at a construction site where workers stack bricks with the focus of monks, their hands caked in clay. A foreman, his turban dusty, shows you how to place your brick, aligning it with a rope stretched taut across the wall. It's like playing a Bronze Age version of Tetris, and you're terrible at it. Your brick's crooked, and the foreman sighs, nudging it straight. You're trying not to laugh, but you're clearly not cut out for this. Here's the quirky tidbit some workers whispered, that perfectly laid bricks brought good luck like a charm for the city's prosperity. You're pressing your brick down now, half hoping it'll bless your next meal, but it's more likely to just bruise your fingers. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread belief or just a motivational trick to keep workers focused. Either way, you're muttering a quick wish for a nap as you set the brick, and a nearby worker, her bangles clinking, chuckles, saying, "Dream bigger, stranger." The mainstream fact is that Harappan bricks were fired in kilns to withstand floods, a practical choice that kept cities like Mohenjo-Daro standing for centuries. These bricks, often in a 1:4 ratio, were laid in interlocking patterns, making walls as tough as the planner's resolve. You're stacking another now, your hands learning the rhythm. Place press, check the rope. The walls growing its surface smooth as a river stone, and you're starting to see how this grid holds the city together. It's not just about looks. It's about survival, keeping floods and chaos at bay in a land where rivers could turn traitor. The foreman hands you a clay jug of water, and you sip it, joking that it's your bricklayer's energy drink. He grins, saying only the river's sweeter. You're thinking of that knotted rope from the planner's courtyard, how it's guiding your work here, every knot a step toward perfection. The workers are chatting, their voices a soft hum over the clink of bricks. You're remembering the gate's towering walls, how they felt like a promise of order. This is that promise, built one brick at a time, and you're part of it, even if your stack's a bit wobbly. A breeze stirs, cooling the sweat on your brow, and you're checking your brick again, hoping it's lucky enough to stay put. The foreman's watching, and you're tempted to ask for a redo, but you move on, grabbing another brick. The grid's pulse is in your hands now, each placement a nod to the Harappan's genius. You're not a builder, but you're learning, and it's soothing like a fan's hum back home. The wall rises, the city breathes, and you're ready to see what else this grid demands, maybe something less heavy than bricks. You're weaving through Mohenjo-Daro's grid now, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the stone streets. The air's thick with the scent of wet clay and roasted chickpeas from a nearby vendor. Your sandals are still dusty from the bricklaying and your arms ache, but you're on a new mission, inspecting the city's drains, the Harappan secret to keeping their urban grid clean and flood-free. The planner's precise lines and those lucky bricks are behind you, but their logic lives in these channels, snaking beneath the city like a hidden bloodstream. You're crouching by a roadside drain, peering into its dark flow, and feeling like a Bronze Age plumber. The Harappan civilization around 2500 BCE engineered advanced drainage systems, a hallmark of their urban planning that set Mohenjo-Daro apart from other ancient cities. You're following a drainage worker, a wiry woman with a clay scoop, as she checks a brick-lined channel running alongside the street. She's pointing out how the drains slope just right, guiding wastewater to larger sewers without pooling. You're impressed, though the smell's less charming, a mix of mud and mystery you're trying not to inhale. She hands you a stick to poke at a clog, and you're praying it's just leaves, not something grosser. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Harappans believed drains were blessed by river spirits, ensuring their flow never stopped. You're stirring the clog now, half expecting a watery sprite to pop up and thank you, but it's just a tangle of twigs. Historians still argue whether this was a religious ritual or a practical way to motivate drain cleaners. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have scared any spirit away, and the worker laughs, saying, "Keep poking, or the river's mad." You're grinning, but you're focused, determined to unclog this drain like it's your life's calling. The mainstream fact is that Mohenjo-Daro's drainage system was a marvel, with covered channels and soak pits that rivaled modern sanitation. Every house had a drain, often linked to street sewers, keeping the grid tidy even during monsoons. You're tracing the channel now, its bricks as precise as the walls you built, each one sealed with bitumen to block leaks. The workers explaining how they clear clogs, weekly, a chore that sounds like herding cats, but keeps the city livable. You're starting to get why archaeologists geek out over these drains. They're the unsung heroes of the Harappan grid, making 40,000 people smell less like a swamp. You're still poking, and the clog gives way, water gurgling happily. The worker nods, impressed, and offers you a handful of roasted chickpeas. You munch one, joking that it's your drain cleaner's reward. She smirks, saying chickpeas beat river water any day. You're thinking of the planner's knotted rope, how its measurements shaped these channels, and the lucky brick you laid, part of this same system. The street's busy kids, splashing in a puddle that's thankfully not from your drain. You're tempted to join them, but the worker's watching, so you hand back the stick and keep moving. The grid's pulse is clearer now, its drains a quiet rhythm under the city's hum. You're remembering the gate's towering walls, how they promised order, and this is that promise flowing beneath your feet. The worker's already clearing another channel, her scoop scraping brick, and you're in awe of her grit. You're not a plumber, but you're learning each poke a nod to the Harapan's genius. The sun's dipping, and you're ready to explore more of this grid, maybe somewhere less smelly, but just as clever. You're strolling through Mohenjo-Daro's bustling market. Now the grid's straight lines channeling a chaos of traders and ox carts under a late afternoon sky. The air's alive with the scent of cumin sesame and sweat-soaked cotton. Your sandals are still gritty from the drain-cleaning adventure, and your cloak's tucked under your arm to dodge the crowd. You're trading today, bartering for beads or barley in the heart of the city's commerce, where the Harapan grid shapes the flow of goods and gossip. The drain's gurgle is a faint hum beneath the market's roar, and you're marveling at how this order keeps the chaos in check. The Harappan civilization around 2500 BCE thrived on trade with Mohenjo-Daro's markets, serving as hubs for goods from Mesopotamia to Central Asia. You're at a stall now, eyeing a trader with a turban piled high, his table stacked with carnelian beads and clay pots. He's offering you a string of beads for a sack of barley. You're carrying a deal that feels like a Bronze Age Black Friday. You're haggling, trying to channel the planner's precision, but your bartering skills are more clumsy tourist than market pro. The trader's smirking, sensing your rookie vibes, but you're holding firm, remembering the chickpeas that got you through the drains. Here's the quirky tidbit: some traders marked their goods with tiny clay seals, like ancient barcodes to track or bless their wares. You're fingering one now, a square stamp with a unicorn etched on it, and it's oddly satisfying, like collecting rare coins. Historians still argue whether these seals were for trade records or had spiritual meaning, maybe warding off bad deals. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have cursed any sale, and a nearby shopper, her bangles jangling, laughs, saying, "Stick to beads, not songs." The mainstream fact is that Mohenjo-Daro's markets were economic engines, with the grid's wide streets and drains ensuring smooth trade even during monsoons. The layout funneled merchants to central plazas like this one, where goods, beads, copper, cotton changed hands under strict weights and measures. You're weighing your barley now using a stone balance the trader swears is river-blessed. It's probably just marketing, but you're nodding, tossing in a few extra grains to seal the deal. The beads are yours, their red gleam catching the sun, and you're feeling like a market champ, even if the trader's still smirking. You slip the beads into your pouch, dodging a kid hawking clay whistles that sound like dying birds. The market's a maze, but the grid keeps it sane. Stalls line up neatly, carts roll without jamming. You're thinking of the planner's knotted rope, how it shaped these streets, and the lucky brick you laid part of the walls guarding this hub. A woman at the next stall offers you a clay cup of tamarind juice, and you sip it, joking that it's your trading victory drink. She grins, saying juice beats beads any day. You're laughing, but you're focused. Weaving through the crowd, the grid's order your guide. The market's hum is a pulse, tying you to the city's heart. You're remembering the drain worker's scoop, how it kept these streets clean for trade. The trader's packing up his unicorn seal tucked away, and you're tempted to ask for one, but your pouch is full. You're not a merchant, but you're learning each barter a nod to the Harapan's genius. The sun's sinking, painting the grid in gold, and you're ready to explore more, maybe a house or a bath, where this order shapes lives, not just deals. You're slipping away from Mohenjo-Daro's market. Now its din fading as you duck into a narrow street lined with mud brick houses. The evening air's cooler, scented with wood smoke and baked bread, and your sandals scuff on the grid's precise stones. Your new carnelian beads jangle in your pouch, a memento of your market hustle. but you're here to explore Harappan homes, their layouts so uniform they feel like they were stamped from a mold. The grid's order is everywhere, shaping not just streets, but lives, and you're stepping into one of these houses curious about the people who called this city home. Around 2500 BCE, Mohenjo-Daro's residential areas were meticulously planned, with houses built to a standard design that maximized space and comfort within the city's grid. You're inside a house now, its courtyard open to the sky, a clay lamp flickering on a low wall. A woman in a cotton shawl kneading dough on a stone slab nods you in her hands dusted with flour. The house is a rectangle, its rooms arranged around the courtyard like a cozy fortress, each wall aligned with the grid's relentless geometry. You're marveling at the flat roof, the brick staircase leading up, and the tiny bathroom. Yes, a bathroom tied to those drains you unclogged. Here's the quirky tidbit: some Harappans decorated their doorways with tiny clay figurines, believing they'd keep nosy spirits out. You're eyeing one now, a lumpy bull perched above the entrance, and it's cute, like a Bronze Age doorbell cam. Historians still argue whether these were religious charms or just artsy flair for proud homeowners. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have scared spirits and neighbors alike, and the woman laughs, saying, "Sing quiet or the bull falls." You're grinning, but you're careful not to bump the figurine as you step inside. The mainstream fact is that Harappan houses were remarkably consistent, with most featuring courtyards, wells, and drainage systems reflecting the civilization's focus on urban equality. This house has it all: vented walls for breezes, a well in the corner, even a latrine that makes you jealous of their plumbing. The woman's explaining how the grid keeps houses cool, their walls catching evening winds just right. You're nodding, trying to look like you get airflow dynamics, but you're just happy to sit on a reed mat and rest your market-weary legs. The courtyard's calm, a pocket of peace in the city's hum, and you're starting to see how the grid shapes not just space, but serenity. She offers you a flatbread warm from the clay oven, and you munch it, joking that it's your Harappan housewarming gift. She smiles, saying bread's better shared. You're thinking of the planner's knotted rope, how it measured these walls, and the unicorn seal from the market, a hint of the trade that fills these homes. The bathroom drain gurgles, a callback to your clog-clearing heroics, and you're tempted to brag, but you're too busy chewing. The woman's kids scamper in one, clutching a clay toy cart, and you're charmed by the normalcy, the grid holding this family as tightly as the city. The lamp's glow dances, and you're running your fingers over the brick wall, its texture familiar from your wall-building stint. You're not a homeowner here, but you're learning each room a lesson in Harappan life. The grid's pulse is soft now, a rhythm of daily routines, and it's soothing, like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to move on, maybe to that great bath you've heard about, where the grid's order meets something sacred. You're leaving the cozy Harappan house behind, stepping onto Mohenjo-Daro's grid under a twilight sky. The air soft, with the scent of jasmine and cooling brick. Your sandals are worn from the market's bustle, and the carnelian beads in your pouch clink faintly, a reminder of your trading triumph. You're heading to the great bath, now the city's sacred centerpiece, where the Harappan grid meets spirituality in a pool of startling calm. The streets are quieter lamps flickering in doorways, and you're following the grid's lines, each step pulling you toward a place that feels like the city's heart. The Great Bath, built around 2500 BCE, is one of Mohenjo-Daro's most iconic structures, a massive brick-lined pool that archaeologists believe served religious or communal purposes. You're at its edge now, staring down at a rectangular basin, its steps descending into water that mirrors the stars. The bath's walls are sealed with bitumen smooth as glass, and its symmetry screams the planner's obsession. Every brick aligns with the grid's relentless order. A priest in a white shawl stands nearby, sprinkling water with a clay ladle, his murmurs blending with the night's hush. You're tempted to dip a toe, but his stern glance says, "Not today, rookie." Here's the quirky tidbit. Some locals believed the bath's water held the Indus River's spirit, purifying anyone who bathed. You're watching the ripples, now half expecting a ghostly fish to wink at you, but it's just the priest's ladle. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual belief or a practical way to hype the bath's hygiene cred. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have turned the water to sludge, and a nearby pilgrim, her hair braided with reeds, chuckles, saying, "Keep your voice out of sacred pools." The mainstream fact is that the Great Bath was a marvel of Harappan engineering, with watertight construction and drains tying it to the city's sewer system. Yep, like the one you unclogged. It's 40 feet long, 20 feet wide, and deep enough to soak your worries away, though you're sticking to the steps for now. The priests explaining how the bath hosts rituals maybe for cleansing, or festivals drawing crowds from across the grid. You're picturing it full people waiting in solemn rows, the water a mirror for their faith. It's not just a pool, it's a symbol tying the city's order to something divine. You sit on the steps, the brick cool under your hands, and the priest offers you a sip from a clay cup water from the bath, he says. You drink joking that it's your holy hydration shot. It's clean with a mineral tang, and he nods, saying, "The river blesses all." You're thinking of the house's clay bull figurine, how it guarded doorways, and the market's unicorn seal hints of a culture that wove spirit into stone. The bath's drain gurgles a faint echo of your sewer work, and you're tempted to peek, but you're too caught in the moment. The grid's pulse is here in the bath's perfect lines and the priest's quiet rites. You're remembering the planner's knotted rope, how it measured this sacred space, and the lucky brick you laid part of the city's bones. The pilgrim's watching the water, her reeds glinting, and you're wondering what she prays for. You're not a priest, but you're learning each ripple a lesson in Harappan life. The stars brighten, and the lyres hum, "Wait." No, that's just the wind, but it's soothing like a fan back home. You're ready to move on, to dig deeper into this grid's secrets. You're drifting away from the Great Bath's sacred calm, weaving through Mohenjo-Daro's grid as dawn paints the brick walls pink. The air's fresh with dew, and the faint char of morning fires, your sandals scuffing on the grid's worn stones. Your carnelian beads clink in your pouch, and that holy bathwater's still settling in your stomach, a reminder of the city's spiritual pulse. You're diving into a scribe's world, now reading clay seals that hold clues to the Harappan's city planning. A quiet alley leads you to a scribe's workshop where tablets and styluses promise to unlock the grid's secrets. Around 2500 BCE, the Harappans used a script still undeciphered to record trade rituals and possibly urban plans etched on clay seals found across Mohenjo-Daro. You're in the workshop, a small room lit by a clay lamp where a scribe, his fingers stained with ochre, sorts tiny seals. He's gruff, but lets you sit pointing to a seal with a bull and strange glyphs. You're squinting, trying to make sense of it, but it's like decoding a Bronze Age emoji. He's explaining how seals marked goods, or maybe plots in the grid, tying the city's order to written records. You're nodding, though you're secretly wishing for a translation app. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some scribes tied their seals with colored threads, believing they'd guard against copying or curses. You're holding one now, its red thread frayed but bright, and it's cute like a gift tag from 4,000 years ago. Historians still argue whether this was a security measure or a ritual to bless the seal's contents. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have tangled the threads into a knot, and the scribe's apprentice, a kid with a lopsided grin, laughs, saying, "Don't sing near my work." The mainstream fact is that Harappan seals, often square and stamped with animals or symbols, were key to the civilization's trade and administration, possibly including city planning. The scribe's showing you a tablet now, its lines hinting at street layouts or water channels like the planner's sketch you saw. It's not clear those glyphs are stubborn, but you're imagining it as a map, the grid's blueprint etched in clay. The seals tied goods to places, maybe even marked houses like the one with the bull figurine, keeping the city's grid as tidy as its drains. You're starting to see the scribe as a cog in Mohenjo-Daro's machine, his work holding the grid together. You trace a glyph with your finger, earning a grunt from the scribe who hands you a reed stylus to try. Your scratches are awful, like a toddler's art project, and the apprentice snickers, saying you're better at trading beads. You laugh, joking that your seal would say, "Lost tourist." The scribe softens, offering you a clay cup of sesame milk. You sip at the nutty warmth grounding you, and you're thinking of the great bath's ripples, how they reflected the grid's order, and the market's unicorn seal a cousin to these. The workshop's quiet, save for the stylus's scrape, and you're tempted to pocket a blank seal, but the scribe's watching. The grid's pulse is in these seals, each one a tiny piece of Harappan logic. You're remembering the lucky brick you laid, how it built the city's walls, and the drain you unclogged, keeping its streets clean. You're not a scribe, but you're learning each glyph a glimpse into the grid's mind. The lamp flickers and you're ready to move on, maybe to the craftsman's quarters where the grid shapes work, not just words. The lyres hum. Okay, that's just your imagination, but it's soothing, like a fan back home. You're leaving the scribe's dim workshop behind, stepping into Mohenjo-Daro's grid as the morning sun climbs, warming the brick streets. The air's sharp, with the tang of molten copper and the earthy scent of drying clay. Your sandals are gritty from the workshop's dust, and the carnelian beads in your pouch clink, a reminder of your market barter. You're heading to the craftsman's quarters now, where artisans shape beads, pots, and tools in workshops neatly tucked into the city's grid. The seal's cryptic glyphs are still swirling in your mind, but you're eager to see how the grid organizes work, not just words. Around 2500 BCE, Mohenjo-Daro's craftsmen were vital to the Harappan economy, their workshops arranged in grid-aligned zones to streamline production and trade. You're in the quarters now, a bustling lane of open-fronted shops where potters spin clay and bead makers drill carnelian with flint tools. A coppersmith, her hands blackened hammers, a blade nearby her strikes ringing like a bell. The grid's order is clear. Each workshop fits the same rectangular plot, their doors aligned like soldiers, making the chaos of creation feel oddly tidy. You're dodging a stray clay shard, trying not to trip and wondering how they keep everything so neat. Here's the quirky tidbit: some artisans painted tiny dots on their tools, believing they'd guide their hands to perfection. You're watching the coppersmith now, her hammer speckled with red ochre dots, and it's charming like a Bronze Age lucky charm. Historians still argue whether this was a ritual for quality or just a way to mark personal gear. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have misaligned every dot, and a beadmaker nearby, his fingers nimble with a drill, laughs saying, "Sing elsewhere or my beads crack." The mainstream fact is that Harappan craftsmanship was highly organized with specialized quarters in cities like Mohenjo-Daro, producing goods for local and distant markets. The grid ensured easy access to resources: clay from the river, copper from Rajasthan, while drains like the one you unclogged kept workshops clean. You're peering into a potter's shop now, where a woman shapes a jar, her wheel spinning smoothly. She's explaining how the grid's layout cuts delivery times, letting her sell pots faster than you could say Indus Valley. You're nodding, impressed, though you're secretly relieved you're not hauling clay in this heat. The coppersmith offers you a clay cup of buttermilk, and you sip it, joking that it's your artisan's power drink. She grins, saying it's better than river mud. You're thinking of the scribe's unicorn seal, how it marked goods like these, and the great bath's sacred ripples tying the city's spirit to its work. The grid's pulse is here in the hammer's rhythm, and the wheels hum a machine of human hands. You're tempted to try the potter's wheel, but your bricklaying fumble flashes back, so you stick to watching your hands safely in your pouch. A breeze carries the lane's heat away, and you're running your fingers over a discarded bead, its half-drilled hole rough. You're remembering the planner's knotted rope, how it shaped these workshops, and the lucky brick you laid part of the walls, shielding this craft. The beadmaker's drilling again, his dots glinting, and you're in awe of their focus. You're not an artisan, but you're learning each tool a lesson in Harappan life. The sun's rising higher, and you're ready to climb the citadel next to see the grid from above its order laid bare. You're climbing the mud brick steps of Mohenjo-Daro's citadel, now the midday sun baking your shoulders as you ascend. The air's thick with dust and the distant scent of barley from fields beyond the grid. Your sandals slip on worn stone, and the carnelian beads in your pouch jangle a souvenir of your market days. You're heading to the citadel's heights, a raised platform overlooking the city where you'll see the Harappan grid's full glory, its streets, drains, and workshops laid out like a Bronze Age blueprint. The craftsman's rhythmic hammering fades below, but the grid's order pulls you upward, promising a view that ties it all together. Around 2500 BCE, the citadel was Mohenjo-Daro's administrative and symbolic heart, elevated to oversee the city's grid and protect its treasures. You're at the top now, catching your breath beside a low wall, the city sprawling beneath you in neat rectangles. The great bath glimmers to the west, its sacred pool a mirror for the sky, while the market's hum drifts up like a faint song. A guard, his bronze spear glinting, nods you toward a vantage point, his turban shading sharp eyes. You're gawking the grid's precision hitting you hard streets, a line like a ruler's edge houses, and workshops locked in perfect rows. Here's the quirky tidbit some Harappans believed the citadel's height let priests speak to the river gods, ensuring the grid's harmony. You're scanning the horizon now, half expecting a divine PowerPoint from the Indus, but it's just shimmering heat. Historians still argue whether this was a religious ritual or a poetic way to justify the citadel's dominance. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have drowned out any god's reply, and the guard chuckles, saying, "Whisper up here, or the winds carry you off." The mainstream fact is that the citadel housed key structures, granaries, meeting halls, maybe even planners' offices, central to Mohenjo-Daro's governance and trade. From here, you see it all: the drains you unclogged snaking through streets, the craftsman's quarters buzzing the house with the bull figurine tucked in its lane. The grid's a machine, and the citadel's its brain coordinating 40,000 lives with eerie efficiency. You're tracing the streets with your eyes, spotting the planner's vision in every line, and you're tempted to sketch it like he did, but your stylist skills are still a disaster. The guard offers you a clay jug of water, and you sip it, joking that it's your citadel's summit refresh. He grins, saying only the river's purer. You're thinking of the scribe's clay seals, how they tracked the goods flowing below, and the lucky brick you laid part of the walls you can see from here. A breeze stirs, cooling your sweat, and you're leaning against the wall, its bricks familiar from your building stint. The grid's pulse is vivid now, a living map beneath you, and you're in awe of its scale. How did they pull this off without a single PowerPoint? You're tempted to linger, but the guard's spear suggests you keep moving. You're not a planner or a priest, but you're learning each view a lesson in Harappan order. The city hums its grid, a rhythm you're starting to feel like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to descend, maybe join a festival next to see how this order shapes celebration, not just stone. The sun's high, the grid's alive, and you're part of it, a speck in Mohenjo-Daro's timeless design. You're descending from the citadel's heights, your sandals crunching on Mohenjo-Daro's grid, as dusk settles, painting the brick streets in hues of amber. The air's warm with the scent of roasted sesame, and flickering oil lamps. Your carnelian beads clink in your pouch, a market keepsake, and your cloak slung over your shoulder, still dusty from the climb. You're joining a Harappan festival now, a vibrant gathering where the city's grid shapes celebrations as tightly as it does drains or workshops. The citadel's view lingers in your mind, but the festival's hum drums laughter and voices pulls you into the heart of a plaza, alive with the grid's ordered chaos. Around 2500 BCE, festivals in Mohenjo-Daro likely marked harvests or religious rites, drawing crowds to central spaces within the city's grid. You're in the plaza now, surrounded by revelers in cotton shawls, their wrists jangling with bangles. Stalls line the edges, grid-aligned, offering clay figurines and barley cakes. A group of dancers sways to a reed flute's wail, their steps tracing the plaza's square lines. The grid's influence is subtle, but clear paths guide the crowd, keeping the chaos from spilling into alleys. You're dodging a kid waving a clay rattle, trying to blend in, though your citadel dust screams outsider. Here's the quirky tidbit: some festival goers wore tiny shell amulets, believing they'd amplify the grid's protective energy during celebrations. You're eyeing one now, a spiral shell dangling from a dancer's neck, and it's pretty, like a Bronze Age party favor. Historians still argue whether these were spiritual tokens or just festive bling for the occasion. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have sent the amulets spinning, and a stall vendor, her hands sticky with honey, laughs, saying, "Dance, don't sing, or you'll scare the harvest." The mainstream fact is that Harappan urban planning extended to public spaces, with plazas like this one designed for communal events, their grid layout ensuring order even in revelry. The plazas surrounded by wide streets like the ones you walked, and drains. Yep, your old friends keep it mud-free despite spilled drinks. You're weaving through the crowd, grabbing a barley cake from the vendor. It's crumbly, but sweet, and you munch it, joking that it's your festival survival snack. She grins, tossing you another for free, saying the grid keeps her stall busy. You're starting to see how the planner's vision, etched in that knotted rope, holds even this joy together. A drummer joins the flute, and you're swaying your moves, more awkward tourist than Harappan dancer. The crowd's warm, their laughter infectious, and you're thinking of the great bath's sacred calm, how it contrasted this lively chaos. The shell amulet glints, and you're remembering the scribe's red-threaded seals tying trade to the grid. The festival's a living map, its order a mirror of the citadel's view, and you're caught in its rhythm, the grid's pulse as steady as the drums. You're tempted to join the dancers, but your bricklaying fumble reminds you to stick to spectating. The lamps flicker, and you're running your fingers over your beads, their weight grounding you. The vendor's packing up her honey jar sealed, and you're in awe of the grid's reach. Streets, homes, now festivals, all aligned. You're not a reveler, but you're learning each step a lesson in Harappan life. The night's deepening, and you're ready to move on, maybe to meet the farmers feeding this grid their work, as vital as the planner's lines. The festival's hum is soothing, like a fan back home carrying you forward. You're slipping away from Mohenjo-Daro's festival plaza, its drumbeats fading as you follow a dirt path beyond the city's grid. The morning air's crisp, scented with dew-soaked barley and the faint musk of grazing oxen. Your sandals sink into soft earth, and your carnelian beads clink in your pouch. A festival keepsake next to that barley cake crumb you forgot to brush off. You're meeting farmers today, the Harappans who fed the city's 40,000 souls, their fields tucked just outside the grid, but vital to its survival. The festival's joy lingers, but the field's quiet hum pulls you into a world of soil and sweat. Around 2500 BCE, Harappan agriculture supported urban centers like Mohenjo-Daro, with farmers growing wheat, barley, and cotton along the Indus River's fertile banks. You're in a field now, knee-deep in golden barley, where a farmer, his linen kilt stained with mud, swings a wooden hoe. He's showing you how to weed his hands quick but gentle, like he's petting the earth. You're trying, but your hoe's more likely to hit your foot than a weed. And he laughs, saying you're better suited to market stalls. You're grinning, though you're already sweating through your cloak. Here's the quirky tidbit: some farmers buried clay figurines in their fields, believing they'd coax bigger harvests from the river gods. You're spotting one now, a tiny bull half hidden in the soil, and it's adorable, like a Bronze Age garden gnome. Historians still argue whether this was a religious rite or a practical marker for field boundaries. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have wilted the barley, and the farmer's daughter hauling a water jug chuckles, saying, "Sing to the oxen, not the crops." The mainstream fact is that Harappan farming was highly organized, with irrigation channels and granaries tied to the city's grid, ensuring food reached markets and citadels. The farmers pointing to a canal nearby, its water drawn from the Indus, feeding these fields like the drains you unclogged fed the streets. You're marveling at the system fields outside granaries, inside, all linked by the grid's logic. He's explaining how barley's stored in citadel silos like the ones you saw from above, keeping the city fed through dry seasons. You're nodding, trying to look like you get irrigation math, but you're just glad for the shade of a nearby acacia. The daughter offers you a sip from her jug, and you drink, joking that it's your farmer's field tonic. She grins, saying river water's the best crop. You're thinking of the festival's shell amulet, how it tied joy to the grid, and the scribe's red-threaded seals tracking goods like this barley. The field's alive, oxen lowing and hoes thumping, and you're caught in its rhythm, the grid's pulse stretching beyond the city. You're tempted to try the hoe again, but your bricklaying flop keeps you humble, so you hand it back, earning a nod. A breeze rustles the barley, and you're running your fingers over the bull figurine, its clay warm. You're remembering the great bath's sacred ripples, how they mirrored this river's flow. The farmer's back to weeding his daughter hauling water, and you're in awe of their work, the grid's lifeblood. You're not a farmer, but you're learning each weed a lesson in Harappan survival. The sun's climbing, and you're ready to trace the trade routes next, to see how this barley travels beyond the grid, carrying Mohenjo-Daro's heart. You're leaving the barley fields behind, stepping onto a dusty trade road just outside Mohenjo-Daro's grid, the noon sun blazing overhead. The air's dry, scented with straw, and the faint tang of ox sweat. Your sandals kicking up clouds that cling to your cloak. The carnelian beads in your pouch jingle a festival echo, and your hands are still gritty from the farmer's hoe. You're tracing Harappan trade routes, now following paths that link Mohenjo-Daro to distant lands, carrying barley beads, and the grid's order far beyond the Indus. The field's quiet hum fades, replaced by the creak of carts and the road's endless stretch. Around 2500 BCE, the Harappan civilization was a trade powerhouse connecting Mohenjo-Daro to Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and beyond, through land and river routes. You're walking beside a trader, his ox cart loaded with clay jars of barley, his turban frayed but proud. He's pointing to ruts in the road, worn by centuries of carts, and explaining how the grid's logic extends here. Way stations align like mini-grids, guiding goods to cities like Harappa, or ports for Persian Gulf ships. You're trying to keep up, dodging ox droppings and wondering how he navigates without a map or a decent GPS. Here's the quirky tidbit: some traders tied tiny clay charms to their carts, believing they'd ward off bandits or bad luck. You're eyeing one now, a bowl-shaped pendant dangling from the cart, and it's cute, like a Bronze Age car freshener. Historians still argue whether these were spiritual tokens or just decorative flair for nervous merchants. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have scared the oxen, not bandits, and the trader laughs, saying, "Sing low, or my cart bolts." The mainstream fact is that Harappan trade routes were meticulously planned with standardized weights and seals like the unicorn one you saw, ensuring fair deals across vast distances. The trader's showing you a clay seal on a jar, its glyphs unreadable, but official, tying his barley to Mohenjo-Daro's market. You're picturing your carnelian beads traveling these roads, maybe to a Mesopotamian bazaar, and it's wild. The grid's reach stretches farther than you imagined, linking cities like a Bronze Age internet. You're holding the seal, its weight familiar from the scribe's workshop, and you're starting to see how the grid's order-fueled empires. The trader offers you a strip of dried fish, and you chew it, joking that it's your trade road energy bar. He grins, saying fish beats dust any day. You're thinking of the farmer's clay bull figurine, how it blessed the fields, and the festival's shell amulet tying joy to the grid. The road's busy carts rumble, traders shout, and you're dodging another pile, your sandals less heroic than your drain-cleaning days. The grid's pulse is here in the ruts and seals, a rhythm of movement that feeds the city and beyond. You're tempted to hop on the cart, but your bricklaying fumble reminds you to stick to walking. A breeze stirs, cooling your brow, and you're running your fingers over the bull charm, its clay warm. You're remembering the citadel's view, how it showed the grid's heart, and the great bath's sacred ripples mirroring the Indus that powers these routes. The trader's whistling, his oxen plodding, and you're in awe of their journey, the grid's logic in every step. You're not a merchant, but you're learning each rut a lesson in Harappan reach. The sun's high, and you're ready to patrol the streets next to see how this grid keeps the city safe at night. You're back within Mohenjo-Daro's grid, the night air cool and heavy with the scent of oil lamps and baked brick. Your sandals scuff on the city's stone streets, and your carnelian beads clink in your pouch, a quiet echo of the trade road's bustle. Your cloak's wrapped tight against the chill, and you're patrolling the grid now, a makeshift night watchman tasked with keeping the city safe. The trade route's distant hum lingers in your mind, but here the grid's order is a shield, its precise lines ensuring peace under the stars. You're gripping a wooden staff, feeling more like a nervous intern than a guard, but ready to walk the city's pulse. Around 2500 BCE Harappan cities, like Mohenjo-Daro, likely relied on patrols to maintain order with the grid's layout, making it easier to monitor streets and deter trouble. You're following a veteran watchman, his turban low, his bronze-tipped staff tapping the ground. He's showing you the ropes, check corners, watch for flickering lamps, listen for odd noises. The grid's a lifesaver, its straight streets offering clear sightlines, unlike the maze-like towns you've heard of elsewhere. You're scanning an alley, half expecting a rogue ox, but it's just a cat slinking past, its eyes glinting. You're trying to look tough, but your staff's more prop than weapon. Here's the quirky tidbit: some watchmen carried clay whistles, believing their sharp notes could summon help or scare spirits. You're holding one now, a small tube tied to your belt, and it's cute like a Bronze Age walkie-talkie. Historians still argue whether these were practical tools or charms to boost courage on dark nights. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have made a better alarm, and the watchman chuckles, saying, "Blow, don't sing, or you'll wake the whole grid." The mainstream fact is that Mohenjo-Daro's grid was designed for security with wide streets and elevated citadels, allowing watchmen to spot trouble fast. The layout you saw from the citadel, neat rows, clean drains, makes patrolling a breeze, keeping markets, homes, and the great bath safe. The watchman's pointing out a house, its bull figurine glowing under a lamp, and you're remembering the festival's shell amulet, how it tied joy to this order. You're checking a drain old habits from your clog-clearing days, and it's clear the grid's plumbing as reliable as its streets. You're starting to see how the planner's knotted rope shaped not just walls but safety, every line a guardrail for 40,000 lives. The watchman hands you a clay cup of warm millet porridge, and you sip it, joking that it's your night patrol fuel. He grins, saying it's better than river water. You're thinking of the trader's bull charm, how it protected his cart, and the scribe's red-threaded seals tracking the goods this grid shields. The streets are quiet, save for a distant dog's bark, and you're caught in the rhythm the grid's pulse, a steady beat under the stars. You're tempted to test the whistle, but the watchman's glare stops you, so you tap your staff instead, feeling briefly official. A breeze rustles the lamp's flames, and you're running your fingers over the whistle, it's clay cool. You're remembering the citadel's view, how it showed the grid's heart, and the farmer's fields feeding its people. You're not a watchman, but you're learning each step a lesson in Harappan calm. The grid's alive, its order, a lullaby like a fan's hum back home. You're ready to reflect on its legacy, next to see how this design echoes beyond the city's walls. You're resting in Mohenjo-Daro's quiet outskirts, now sprawled on a reed mat under a tamarind tree. The night sky a blanket of stars above the city's grid. The air's soft scented with earth and the faint smoke of distant lamps. Your sandals are off your carnelian beads, tucked safely in your pouch. Their weight, a reminder of the market, the festival, the trade roads. You're reflecting on the Harappan grid's legacy, how its perfect lines shaped a civilization and still whisper lessons 4,000 years later. The city hums faintly, its order a lullaby, and you're sinking into the calm, ready to let this journey close. Around 2500 BCE, the Harappan civilization's urban planning set a gold standard, with Mohenjo-Daro's grid influencing cities across the Indus Valley and beyond. You're gazing at the city's silhouette, its mud brick walls soft against the horizon, the great bath's outline a sacred anchor. The grid's genius streets, drains, houses, citadels, held 40,000 lives in balance, a feat that makes modern cities look chaotic. You're thinking of every step, the planner's knotted rope, the lucky brick you laid, the scribe's seals, the farmer's fields. Each piece built this legacy, a design so enduring it's studied millennia later, a Bronze Age blueprint for order. Here's the quirky tidbit: some Harappans believed the grid's symmetry pleased the stars, aligning the city with cosmic rhythms. You're staring at the constellations, now half expecting them to nod approval, but they just twinkle. It's a poetic idea, like the grid was a love letter to the sky. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual belief or a metaphor for the Harappans' obsession with precision. You're joking to yourself that your storm humming would have misaligned the whole zodiac, and a passing herder, his staff tapping, chuckles, saying, "Rest don't sing or the stars flee." The mainstream fact is that Mohenjo-Daro's grid was a pinnacle of urban design with standardized bricks, drains, and layouts that rivaled later civilizations. You're picturing the citadel's view, the festival's ordered chaos, the trade routes carrying barley to Mesopotamia. The grid wasn't just stone, it was a system tying crafts, faith, and food into a single rhythm. You're holding a stray brick, its edges worn, and it feels like the lucky one you laid a piece of the city's soul. The herder offers you a clay cup of goat's milk, and you sip it, joking that it's your legacy toast. He grins, saying the grid's sweeter. You're running your fingers over the mat, thinking of the bull figurine in the house, the shell amulet at the festival, the whistle on your patrol. Each tied you to the grid, a web of order that held Mohenjo-Daro together. You're not a planner or a farmer, but you've walked their world, felt its pulse. The city's quiet now, its lamps dimming, and you're grateful for its calm, a gift from the Harappan's genius. The grid's legacy is your lullaby, soothing like a fan's hum back home, and you're ready to let it carry you. The night wraps you gently, the tamarind's leaves whispering as stars soften above. Mohenjo-Daro's grid fades its bricks and drains a distant hum, each line a memory of your journey. Fields mark its sacred baths. The air's cool, the earth's embrace warm, and your breath slows, sinking into the city's timeless calm. The herder's gone, the lamps are out, and you're drifting the grid's order, a soft pulse in your heart. Sleeps here deep and kind, carrying you on its quiet tide, a whisper of Harappan stars guiding you home. Wraps you gently, the tamarind's leaves whispering as stars soften above. Mohenjo-Daro's grid fades its bricks and drains a distant hum, each line a memory of your journey. Fields mark its sacred baths. The air's cool, the earth's embrace warm, and your breath slows, sinking into the city's timeless calm. The herder's gone, the lamps are out, and you're drifting the grid's order, a soft pulse in your heart. Sleeps here deep and kind, carrying you on its quiet tide, a whisper of Harappan stars guiding you home.